Part 2 of our exclusive conversation with LA Mayor Karen Bass at her first extensive TV sit-down since the Palisades fire began. Last night, we talked to her about her trip to Ghana. Tonight, more on the city's fire response, why this fire was so personal for her, and her future. There are critics of you that were supporters of you. There were critics of you that were opposed to you before this whole thing.
Yes.
That say that you didn't... They're frustrated by your performance in all this, and they don't have faith that you can lead the city right now.
Well, you know
what do you
what?
say to those? What do you say to those critics? It is my
responsibility to disprove that.
Yeah.
It is my responsibility to prove that I can lead, and I am, the rebuilding and the recovery process. Expediting things, as I mentioned, opening up these centers that people can access, 7,000 people going to the disaster recovery centers. I think it's important to communicate to people what is actually being done, and that's my responsibility to do.
LADWP, we have that reservoir that is offline for repairs. We have all sorts of reports of fire hydrants not having enough pressure.
I will tell you that the fire hydrant situation is also something that has to be examined. The reservoir, as you know, was a reservoir for drinking water. The reason why it was empty, it was mandated by the state to be emptied because there was a tear in the cover. In the best of all worlds, one of the things that was so difficult in the fires were the hurricane force winds that the planes could not fly in. So even if the planes had, even if the reservoir had been filled, they wouldn't have been able to have used that. But the fire hydrant issue is something that is a whole separate investigation. It's a combination between the DWP and the fire department. The fire department inspects the fire hydrants. The DWP repairs them.
Your own brother lost his home in all of this. How has that shaped your perspective on what people are going through?
Well, I mean, I think that all of us as a city are grieving. Are grieving because many of us, if not most, knew somebody that was impacted. Either they worked there, they lived there, or some way. They went to school there. And so while I'm dealing with it as the leader of the city, I'm also dealing with it within my own family. My brother lived in Malibu for 35 years, survived many fires, and this one, unfortunately, they didn't make it. Their house didn't make it. They're fine. My brother and sister-in-law are fine.
And are you still enjoying this job, and are you still committed to running for re-election?
I am, absolutely. I mean, I ran for a purpose. I knew I would face challenges. I've been through disasters before in terms of living in the city, and I've had major challenges, whether I was in Congress or in the State House, and so yes.
And yes, you're still committed to running for re-election.
I'm still committed to running for re-election. I'm still committed to doing this job every single day.
Well, there's a lot to examine in looking back, right? So it's a question of how long, when will we get some of those answers?
Right. And that re-election potential campaign is probably a lot more complicated than it would have been a couple months ago. I mean, it was widely seen that she was a shoo-in for re-election, was not thought that there would be a serious contender against her. That may change now, and if that happens, then even more incentive to give answers like what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.